and nice and simple. Okay, so I'll do that again. So I look for this tool that's the object selection. Now, because I'm going around clear, it's going to do a rough job of the hair. So at this stage, I could just go add mask. So the little icon, the circle and the square, and it's masked it. So it's automatically done a mask, but nothing's been erased. It's just the mask that's letting me see some parts and not others. So I can show you what's going on. I'm going to go to the adjustment layer, and I'm just going to pick this one called solid color. This was a mistake. I bumped it before. That's nothing. So solid color, I drag by clicking on that layer. I drag it underneath, and what you'll see is the selection. It's a little bit crude. If I look at the hair, it's a little bit rough. But this fulfills the brief. You know, I've actually got an image. It's not been erased. It's been controlled by a mask. So that's what you need. And then, but if I want to make it look a bit nicer, I make sure I've clicked on the mask. And you can always tell because you get these 4 little corners. You can see the kind of ring around it. And then up the top, you've got this option that says select and mask. If you ever lose that, you can find it by going up to the select menu, select and mask. And what this does is it has a whole lot of different viewing options, but the one we want is the one that says on layers. So I don't think that's automatic, so make sure it's on that. And if I go smart radius, and then over on the left-hand side, I've got this second icon, paintbrush icon down that says refine edge. And if I get a brush that's a little bit bigger, you can see the circle there, it's a little bit wider than that edge. I'm just going to paint, so click and drag over those areas around the edge of the hair,
Okay.
where it's not looking so good. And so a bit here, drag around it. I can see it dragging around the front of the face. Go back and forth over it a couple of times. It does a pretty good job of masking it out. Also, I should say, getting the edge of the hair looking just right. Drag it through those areas. Okay, go okay. And so I'm getting a much nicer job. Oh, I forgot this part of the hair, so I can go back to select and mask again and run down there. So it's giving a much nicer result. So this really simply is our masking, and that's what I want to see. And actually, just while I'm here, I'll do the other one, and then you'll know exactly what you need to cover off. So I've got I think there's drawing. Yep, okay, I've got drawing in here. So I'm going to select all of that and cut it, find my image here. So I go to channels. I start by making a new channel. I'm going to go edit and paste, and it pastes that other image. At this stage, I decide, well, do I want to scale it or not? So, okay, I'm going to, edit, transform, scale. And the area I'm going to look at is, I think I'm going to look at this part of the drawing. So those blind drawings, all they're doing is they're just giving us really beautiful marks. So command select, deselect, so I've got nothing there. And then usually what I do is I just get a paintbrush, make it black. Oh, sorry. When it is white. So I'm just painting out the bits that I don't want. Just black and white. What do I want to keep? And what don't I want to keep? Okay, so if I have that, now what I do is I go image, adjustments, invert. And the reason I do that is white is going to be what I fill with the color, and black is what is not going to be filled. So I want to fill this because I want the drawing. Then I come down to here, the select, or load the channel selection tool. I can see I've got what they call my marching ant, so that little dashed line going around. Go to my layers. I make a nice new blank layer by clicking that little icon with a plus. I can actually fill this with any color. So if I click that, pick a blue, I'll go okay, edit, fill, and this time I'm going to say, okay, I want to fill it with the foreground color because I've got that blue. Select, deselect, and that's it. So when I come along and do the marking, I'm going to look down here and go, cool, okay, so the image is masked. They've got this. Have they done that through the channels? Yes, they have, because it's sitting there. Perfect. Everything else that's going on with all the images that I have online is just adding more and more detail in. This is the process, and now I'm going into how do I make it look good and how do I make it look interesting. And so in this case, I just come in here and say, it's not very good when it goes over a face. So if I have that image and I click the make mask, because you can have a mask on anything, it automatically starts off as white when I make a new one. I know that black blocks, so I can get a paintbrush as long as I've on the mask, so I've got those corners, I can paint it out. Okay. All that black is doing is blocking it, and I'm blocking it because I think it looks a bit, cruddy on her face. Are there other areas that I don't like it? It's like, yeah, maybe I'll just have it on the here, but not out here. No. And then what else can I do? The other thing that we've talked about, but it's not a requirement, is clipping masks. So joining one thing with another. So if I hold down the Option key, which for you, Julie, is going to be Alt, and I go between these two layers, see there's a little square with an arrow? Yeah. If I click, it clips it. So it means this image is only showing on this one. And the mask is controlling what I can see. If I hold down the Alt and click between those layers again, I can see the whole thing. So let's try a different one. If I go new layer, so it's a blank layer, and I get this graduated fill and I just drag it right across the whole image. Now, if I clip it, it's only going to show up on these lines and not on the rest of the transparent image. So Alt, click, and it's through there. Now, again, we can add a mask on here. So if I add a new mask, I know that black is going to block this color. So if I get a big soft brush, and with black it's going to block, then if I block this, what will it do? It'll show the blue of these lines coming through. So I can just come around the head and say, okay, so wherever it is on the background, it looks blue. And you can see that's what I'm doing. I'm painting that black on the mask, and it's hiding the red and letting me see the blue. And where it's not painted, I can see this color. So all I'm doing is adding more and more layers and making it more and more complicated. But you know, this is with if you get that, you cover all the territory, and then you know, do another one where you play around with it. So I could save that, and then I could come in here and say, okay, I'm going to unclick the link. So now the mask and the image are separate. So that means if I click on this, the mask stays where it is, and the image moves around. So you can end up with some pretty crazy results. What happens if I click on the mask, and because they're not linked, I do something to the mask. So let's go I'll do a distortion one. I'll go I'll just go twirl's pretty awful, but we'll have a okay. So the twirl is only affecting the mask. And then if I link them together, they both move around again together. So, you know, you can very quickly do things where you can play around with things and you know, see what works and what doesn't. All of these things as well, like if I unlink that, whoops, I wasn't clicked on it. Now you can see the color, the line is moving around and changing because of the mask of the color. All of this as well though, like now that I've moved those lines, I can come in here and say, if I click on the mask, I can block it because it's over the face again, or I can change it to white, and white's going to get rid of that mask. It's going to show the image rather than block it.
No, I need 5 more minutes.
Okay, so I'll
5 minutes gone out.
stop the sharing on that one, and